It is July 10th, 2022, and we are about 5 weeks post Grand Canyon hike. And this is our little recap on kind of what we thought worked, what didn't work, maybe what we would change, and just kind of cover some of those things. So overall, it was very, very positive for her. And what you've learned is that I was the weak link in the whole process.
No.
From training throughout the whole thing. As we'll walk through this, you'll see. But she did great, and we both had a wonderful time. We recommend it to anybody.
Amazing.
It's got its dangers. The beauty is amazing. Like we mentioned in the film, when I was filming, a lady had passed away the day before we hiked. So it is treacherous. And most everybody we ran into was having some kind of issue with the whole process of getting across the canyon. So,
various ages. You have to respect the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, and the heat and the elevation changes. It's quite tremendous. So, overall, I think I felt pretty good about our training. I do primarily running, and I do some strength training. And you primarily
did running. We did some trail running and swimming. So
that was kind of like our base stuff that we did that wasn't Grand Canyon specific. That's kind of like what we were always doing.
Correct.
And probably gave us a very strong foundation.
I was doing at an incline of 15%, right?
Yeah,
on
15%
on the treadmill. I would do an hour or 2 hours, 2 miles, 3 miles. I even did 6 miles just to know I could do it.
You ended up doing 6 miles.
I did 6.
Yeah, so that was great preparation.
So that gave me confidence in going up the North Rim. So, and that I highly recommend. It's a slow, the incline walk. I walked.
Yeah, well, that's what we did too. We walked. We were in very few steps the whole way. We kind of talked about that, but there was a lot of, for us, it was more technical than we would like for running. There were some places that were runnable, but for the most part, we did not feel like it was.
Correct.
I think you were very like, why are we doing all these long hikes where we were doing like 20, 25 miles? And we did Stone Mountain up and down. And you kind of wondered about that. In fact, I think you actually said that you thought the training was more difficult for you than the actual Grand Canyon hike.
Yes, the training at Stone Mountain was definitely more difficult for me. That going up that 1.5 miles, very steep
side
of the granite. Yes, that was very hard.
So I think that was very good preparation, and the fact that we did the back-to-back days where we did like 20 miles one day and then maybe 10 the next, and then our goal was at 30 and 15, but I ended up hurting my leg. So that was one of the downsides, I'd say, is the training is perhaps we overdid something there, but I got something with my tibialis anterior, which is on the front of your leg, on the outside of the shin. That got cranked up in one of my legs, and so then that became a real big limiter for me for
2 weeks
the
before
final 2 weeks beforehand. Yeah, so I backed off pretty much all my training, did a little bit of elliptical, but that certainly I feel like set me back some. I wasn't doing the pounding with the running that gives you leg strength, so that hurt me on that. But I think the overall idea of backing up those 2 days and that training was very specific to what we were doing.
I agree.
I'd say one of the downsides was it really wasn't very hot here yet when we did that training. And so we didn't have some of the heat training that we could have used for the Grand Canyon.
True.
So as we'll talk about later why that could become an issue. So overall, I feel like the training we had beforehand, we also did, I think, a pretty good job of nailing in our nutrition. We practiced with different nutrition. You found out what worked for you. I found what worked for me. We never had any issues during our training.
No,
and our nutrition plans were quite different.
Yes, very.
So
that's
if you look at our video
that
talks about what we carried, our gear and our nutrition and hydration plan, you can see what we had differently. So the gear during the hike, how did you feel with your shoes? What did you wear?
Shoes were good. I think it was very important to have the gaiters because it is very rocky, dusty.
What did you wear, sneaker-wise?
I had Hoka
Speed Goats.
Speed Goats. bright colors, and then the long sock, what is it?
The compression socks?
Yes, compression socks, a higher running sock, features, and then the gaiters. I was great. Never had a problem at all.
No blisters.
Nothing.
The socks you used worked. I had used the same socks I'd been using training, so
Yes.
neither of us had any blisters. I put a little Glide. It's like a anti-chafing stuff on my feet. I don't know if you even
I put cream, like sometimes just cream that you
Yeah.
put on your legs.
So,
yeah.
so that's huge. Again, one little blister can be a huge detriment to any long hike. So we were very fortunate that way.
Yes.
So that tried and true, and it worked for us. How about your pack?
My pack was great. Used a fanny pack and my pack. You don't really access your pack very much, just the water back there. But my fanny pack, that's where I kept my food, and I used it for that. My poles. So, yep.
And we did it. Most of your hiking was with a smaller pack, and we found that to have some of the additional safety things, like jacket and long pants and long shirt, that you need a little bit bigger pack.
A little bit bigger, yes.
And that
Didn't
was
go up much.
a
but
Talon, I
little.
believe. Osprey Talon.
Osprey, yeah.
I can't remember the size offhand. Again, that's in our gear
My
video.
super important gear, and I don't know if this is the moment for it.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Like, I kept cool, and that I think was a real positive for me. So in my gear, I had a neck band that you soak in water. It has the beads. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm sure
I
they
can't
have a
remember.
name.
Again, it was in our gear thing, and I had the name, but I can't remember.
I don't remember. And I had 3 buffs with me, and I had them wet. I put one around one wrist and one around the other and one around my neck with that neck cooler underneath it. It stayed cool for like 4 hours.
Yeah, and that's one thing you did differently. I did not add the additional wetness around mine, and I end up
Yours
mine
was
dried
dry
out.
in like half an hour.
So those things probably work, but you have to keep them wet. And in the summer heat there, it's so dry that mine wanted to dry out without that additional help. And you just did that if this felt right, and you did that. And I think by cooling your wrist even with the wet was helpful to you.
And it gives you something to kind of wipe sweat off, but you don't even really notice you're sweating down there.
Yeah, no, because it's so dry.
But I had coolness, and I kept flipping them, and that was huge. That was
I think you found that to be very, very
that
beneficial.
was very helpful. Kept me cool.
I think our poles. Now, I'm just going to mention what we got. We got the Cascade Mountain Tech lightweight aircraft grade aluminum trekking poles with extended down grip.
Wow.
On Amazon for $29.99 each. And they both, neither of us had any issues with our poles.
Not at all.
So for $30, I highly recommend those poles. We had no issues. They were fantastic. What did you think about using them for both down and up? Did you find them beneficial?
Oh, they were always there. It's so every 10 steps you have to do something, and that's for a lot of miles.
Yeah, both down and up.
Down and up and across. You are using your
some
poles.
small little stream crossings. They weren't big, but again, to keep your feet dry from blisters.
You have to have poles.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's very helpful going on the up too. That gives you some. You're using your arms to help your legs. So I think that was beneficial. Going down, again, that's my biggest weakness, and it just gives you some more points of contact to protect you from twisting a knee, twisting an ankle. So again, if you do one of those things, then your hike is probably pretty good done at that point, which is a pretty big deal. So, so the actual hike, we've talked a little bit about that, but I'd say going into it, I had been struggling with my sleep, and so I did not sleep very well all the night before. The week leading up to that. And since then, I've actually cut my caffeine back. I finally started figuring out how much caffeine I was drinking. I was drinking like 45 ounces of coffee a day probably. So I've cut that back to around 20, and I've been trying to work on my more water, and it feels like it's helping with my sleep. So that seems to improve, but not going into it, it was not good. But I think you rested well. She always rests well. So,
I sleep well.
She sleeps deep, I don't, so I'm not as trusting as she is. So, how about your hydration plan?
It worked.
And what did you use primarily?
I kind of do a half of what they call for, so I don't know what the
For
numbers are.
Tailwind?
For Tailwind. I do Tailwind, a mix of the regular and then a caffeinated, and I do about half for the ounces
Of what they
water.
recommend.
Yes, and that worked for
Perfect
me. I
for
did
you.
that the whole way through.
Okay.
And I never was craving water. I don't even think I drank any fresh water at all. I drank my pack of
Just
Tailwind.
Tailwind.
But it's mild. That's pretty mild.
Yeah,
so
that
it's
is.
not as. And I eat some fresh items. Like I had grapes. So
Which would
I
be
was.
some more hydration.
Right.
Not a lot, but give you
it's
some.
fresh. You know,
Yes.
it's like kind of a. So I think that it worked. It worked for me.
And that may have been my biggest fail. Again, I've used Tailwind for almost all my marathons. I used it for all of our hike preparation. I've never had an issue. But I think probably using the Tailwind, and I use it pretty much at the normal strength, and the number of calories I was eating probably were too much for the heat that we end up feeling at the end. That's the only thing. I've tried to look things up. I can't figure it out. But what happened by the time we got to Cottonwood, which was probably 10 hours in, maybe
18 miles.
Okay,
18 miles into 20.
I was starting to struggle, and I did not want to drink my Tailwind, and I didn't have any water available to me, so I was starting to not drink as much. My stomach was off. I didn't want to eat anything. So once we got to Cottonwood, I just drank like 40 ounces of water, and I took it easy for a little bit, and I completely feel like I bounced back almost completely to normal.
Yep.
Then I ate a little bit, but then what I failed to do, I don't know why, because I knew going into Cottonwood, I just need water. I filled up my pack with Tailwind and water, the same exact combination as I had been, which again, I've always used it and it's never failed me. But what happened is I end up having a problem with that again as we were climbing out to the North Rim, and I end up going, I don't know, maybe the last 2 hours without really any hydration because again, my stomach was getting off. And so that became a huge problem. It affected me going to Cottonwood, so we spent about an hour in Cottonwood, lost a fair amount of time there. Hate to jump around, but losing time-wise, the things that probably affected us were our estimate of going down. We estimated about 17 minutes per mile. She probably could, again, could have maintained that. I struggle into going down, and my ankles are really bad, so I'm not trusting. So I take a long time going down, and it's pretty. You have to pretty much watch your footing on every step going down, and especially when it gets very steep. So we were slower going down. Going out, we pretty much matched the paces we expected to match. Even though I was struggling with the lack of hydration, we still did well. And we actually were out hiking most of the people that we met along the trails who were very good, hikers. And so even with that
Steady.
problem, so that was something we overestimated our speed going down and underestimated or estimated correctly our speed going out. So the hydration ended up being a big issue for me that seemed to not work. I'm thinking it was the heat was the biggest impact on that.
Heat, the sleep.
Yeah, I think again, when you don't sleep well, your stomach
combination.
tends to be off a little bit anyways, and that was a problem. Nutrition,
It was good.
yeah, no problems.
I was happy.
And you ate a little bit. Again, we have that
I had
plan.
yeah.
The video
Yes.
talks about our nutrition and what
Yes.
you carry, what I carry. I probably overate, and again, all that had worked exactly. I ate what had been doing in my training, but for some reason it just didn't work that day. So those things happen. How did you feel about your conditioning overall? How you felt leg
It
wise?
was great. It was
Okay.
great. And I was cautious also because I did think we were going rim to rim to rim.
And that was our
So-
goal the whole time.
And that was our goal. So I did know that I was intentional on using the training and using my energy and how I moved
With having some
to
reserve, you weren't
reserve
crushing it.
Yes, yes. So I was, trying to preserve my knees because it takes a toll.
Yeah. Now I'd say my knees didn't really bother me going down much. I think some of the weightlifting I've been doing recently has been helpful to that. But it was just that I just did not feel good, and that's what affected me. So I don't think it's like the breathing is not really a big issue.
No.
There is an elevation, your higher elevation on the North Rim. I didn't really feel like that was a huge impact on me. even though we never train at elevation.
And because you're hiking, your heart rate stays at a better
Pretty steady.
level than compared to running.
I mean, there's obviously fatigue from going that many
Yes.
miles.
Yes.
Going down is very crushing on your quads and your knees, and then going up is getting more the quads and the hamstrings and the posterior side. So those things are, but I feel overall we were both pretty strong that way.
Yes.
And did
we were
did
okay
well.
that way. Yes.
So I think our conditioning, our training really was as optimal as it could be for what we were trying to do. But we did fail on so by the time we got to North Rim, I actually started dry heaving just as we were getting up there. And then I just had like uncontrollable chills for about an hour. So that and the amount of time we thought we'd hit, I think we were shooting for 9 hours and it ended up taking us about 12. And that was probably almost equally split between slower going downhill and our stops were longer. And we had not thought about the GoPro. We're glad I have every minute out there, but that probably was 45 minutes to an hour of filming. And you don't really think about it at the time, but all that adds up. So that was definitely so by the time we got there, we were already 12 hours in. I'm assuming it would have taken us at least another 12 hours to get back. So it would have been 24 hours. So it would have been a tough time. In fact, we saw some young kids who left the North Rim. They got there just a little bit before us. They left shortly after we got there. We ended up seeing them the next day after we took a shuttle. After we spent the night at the North Rim, took a shuttle and went back to our hotel room. They had just got out. So I think we figured out it was another 17 hours for them. So it took them 17 hours to get back because one of them got dehydrated and it was dry heaving and throwing up and everything. And they had to spend about 6 hours at the bottom of the canyon before he could come recover a little bit. So I don't know. I feel like we ultimately made the right decision, but she could have kept going, and I feel bad for her because she had a great, strong day, and everything fell in place for her. I've never had any of those kind of issues on the other hike I did with the Grand Canyon, any of my other training and running, marathons, never have had a problem with nutrition. So as much as I tried to dial it in, it still ended up I missed. So.
Well, but you had those factors that.
Yeah, it might have helped. It might have impacted. Again,
yes, for sure.
I think what I would do differently is I think I would primarily carry water in my hydration pack, probably almost exclusively water, and I would have an extra bottle or two that I could put water in with some Tailwind mix as needed, and I probably would rely more on like sodium pills and the Tailwind in the little bottles, along with my nutrition to give me the sodium I needed. And then I could drink regular water and then supplement as I needed. And it also makes filling the packs a lot easier if you don't have to take it apart to put the Tailwind in. You can use the quick fill. And that took us a fair amount of time to get the stuff out of the pack and put it back in. So I think that would have saved a lot of time, and I think it would have been better for me overall, because when I got to the point I couldn't drink the Tailwind, I had nothing else. And as you're climbing out of North Rim, you're no longer by the river source, so now you don't have that water. So that's something I think that I would do differently. Anything else you would have changed? Now, okay, the other thing I would change probably is to make, if you're going to do the rim to rim to rim, you probably have to travel lighter.
Yes.
I was
probably okay.
Not bad, but we both could have traveled a little lighter. But again, I was assuming like if something happened, either of us sprained an ankle, sprained a knee, we've got something there basically, very basic to help us. Also, we had extra clothing, because we almost thought we might get stuck in the North Rim without anywhere to stay. Fortunately, they had a room in the hotel, they said it was the last room. But otherwise, we would have been sleeping up there somewhere, and it would have been very cold. It would have been in the 30s. So it's hard to say, but I think if you really want to do that, rim to rim to rim, you probably got to travel as light as you possibly can.
You carried a lot more of the extras.
But still, yeah, because I'm OCD and I'm trying to prepare, but again, I don't want to spend $15,000 to get hauled out of the Grand Canyon, and I don't want to be carried in some little basket hanging on a helicopter. That is not my idea of a good time. She probably would enjoy that, not me. So, overall, an amazing trip. What do you think? Will we go back? Do you want to go back? Do you have a desire to go back? Or was that your magic day?
No, I think that may have been the magic day, and there's got to be something else pretty awesome out there to do.
But she was literally overwhelmed by just the beauty of it, probably 5 or 6
Amazing.
times.
Highly recommend.
Yeah, and the challenge. So, and we met great people along the way.
Yes, really great.
And that's
people.
always fun. So took the shuttle back with a couple of them, couple from Pittsburgh, and that made that trip that much more enjoyable. Because it's a long trip. It's about 4.5 hours from the North Rim back to the South Rim via shuttle. So we should have maybe hiked it, but I just wasn't sure how much I would recover.
On we go.
And how I feel. So, but it's a great adventure. We challenge you to get out there and try your adventure, whatever it is. Just live life to the fullest. It's not just about that. It's about people most importantly. But we do enjoy physical challenges. So we had a great time. Didn't go as well as we were hoping for, but it's a memory we'll never forget. So
got my shirt.
Yes. So until next time, love you. Well, I forgot a couple things, so I want to close with a couple additional thoughts. One thing I would like to have found that would have improved things a lot, I think, is learning or finding a good place for doing some downhill walking, hiking, running. And we did not have a good place for that. So I would emphasize that more in my training if I was trying to do, again, the rim to rim to rim, or even the rim to rim. Just finding a good place to learn to go downhill that's got some challenging, fair amount of rock and pretty steep, just to work on that training of stepping and working on your speed going downhill. I think that would have been a tremendous help. We really focused on the uphill, which paid off greatly when we went to North Rim, but I think I could have benefited greatly by having some more downhill training. So that's one thing I wanted to throw in there. The second thing is, I'm probably just crazy, but the backpack is great, but I don't like having to take the pack off every time to access anything. So I carried a waist pack, and that's great, but it's, again, one additional thing to carry, so it's kind of a pain. So I would love to find a pack that came around more and gave you more waist packs on the front where you buckle, and that would come around closer to the front, that were bigger. Again, my thing was I could carry about 6 hours worth of food in my waist pack, and that really made that convenient, so I could grab food really easily. But I would try to find a pack that would allow for more space up front, try to get rid of the waist pack and other places to store food for along the hike. So that would be something I would like to try to find. There's not a lot of packs out there that seem to have the little side packs that come around partially, but they don't seem to be able to come around all the way to the front. So that's something I'd like to see find. I think that'd be a big benefit, at least to me. The other thing is, again, I tested all the foods I used, but I think in the hotter weather, for some reason, it didn't work. And typically I do great in the hot weather, and Ann doesn't like the hot weather. So not sure what happened there. I think it was primarily just maybe too many calories and too much Tailwind. And I could have maybe cut back on the Tailwind and just gone with water, again, like I said before, and then just did a little bit of electrolyte to fill out what I was eating food-wise. So that may have been the answer. But if you got thoughts on that, foods that have worked well for you in hotter weather while hiking or running, whatever, let me know on that. The other thing is, if you got any questions or suggestions regarding like hydration, nutrition, gear, training, and your actual hike, that would be helpful, or questions that you have that might be helpful to you. I mean, that's the whole reason we're posting this. We really are just trying to help other people. We want to see other people go out there and make adventures, make memories, and keep living life to the fullest. So again, if you got questions or thoughts, please share those down below. I think they'd be helpful to other people too. The remainder of the video is just got some additional footage of the North Rim and some of the sights that we saw traveling back from the South Rim. We saw some bison, and so I think it's kind of neat. You don't see a lot of footage of the North Rim, so it just gives you some quick ideas of what the North Rim is like. And until next time, live courageously, embrace challenge, and go multiply faith, hope, and love that never fails. We're at the North Rim, and we end up spending the night because I got so messed up So we're gonna look into that and try to figure out what that was. But thought we'd give you a little bit of a preview of what it looks like at the North Rim. So they got lots of little cabins here for people to stay in. Very rustic. Beautiful, beautiful place. We'll take you into the Grand Lodge up here. That's got a restaurant in it, and probably, you know, there's a beautiful like lobby area that looks out over the canyon. We'll try to take some shots of that to give you a feeling of that. But this is the North Rim, and I think you can see maybe through here. Well, I had a glimpse of the canyon on a side that you never really see because it's, well, we'll catch it when we get into the Grand Lodge. So here's the Grand Canyon Lodge at the North Rim. This is where all the people are coming and going. Off to the right here, there's a little deli. They have sandwiches and drinks and stuff like that. Pop. Over here, there's a tavern, saloon, and then straight ahead they have the here's the lodge, and then there's a nice restaurant in here. So saloon opens shortly, which sells coffee in the morning, and then we're going to take the shuttle back to the South Rim here shortly. Sure. Well, is that open?
Well, it looks like it.
So here's the back of the lodge. Pretty mammoth fireplace. Love to see that thing cranked up. And this is the view from up here. It is spectacular. And there's the valley of pain that we came up. But this is a whole nother level of view here from even the South Rim, I feel like. Especially as the sun rises, and yeah, you are higher, you're looking down. So very, very, just amazing. So this is the lobby that overlooks the canyon. So you can see parts over here. Looks like an artist is over here. He's doing some drawing, which that's got to be beautiful. So it's part of the canyon that you really rarely see is off to this side over here. And I'm sure there's all kinds of hikes potentially over there too that never done, never explored. The Grand Canyon Lodge, we think, started in 1928, so there's a little overlook. That's pretty legit. That would have me freaked out. Amazing place. So the entry to the lobby, that's the restaurant. So get some pretty nice views if you're sitting there to have dinner. I don't think you can match that too many places. So this is looking west from the restaurant. Again, you just don't really ever see that section. Canyon's huge, a lot bigger than the part that we just hiked. I mean, it's much wider than it is across, so we just saw a small glimpse of it, but it's amazing. Bison.
Oh yeah, they are. Look at the calves with their moms.
That's awesome.
Some of them are really
Wow, this is quite the crew. Yeah.
A couple of
There were
hundred.
two like
That's a ton.
25 yesterday. That's great.
like little baby lambs.
That's fantastic. Now, they're not farmed or anything. They're just
They live here.
they're natural.
Yeah. Well,
That range off the furthest range away is the North Rim that we just came down from, and then this are called the Vermilion Cliffs, I think is what they said. So just more beauty in Arizona. So we are on our shuttle ride. We're about an hour and a half away from the North Rim at this point, and we are heading back to the South Rim.